So I started with rentals
Yeah.
and kept up with those renters who eventually became buyers, because you can go and get a silver ring or silver earrings for $300, or you can go and get, a $50 million diamond tiara.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you still get that same service. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to take any price point, and it was regardless of price point, that you were going to get a luxury experience.
Awesome. Welcome. And Ellen Taracido, thank you for joining us. I'm excited. And our fellow Spaces neighbor here. So awesome to have you here. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes,
Glad
awesome.
to be here.
And for our listeners, who's Ellen? Tell us a little bit about your background and that phone number that you're holding on to. Yeah.
I refuse to give up my New York number. I do want everyone to know that I'm a New Yorker. So I kept my 917 number. I really am truly a New Yorker, but I live in Florida now. I think a lot of New Yorkers are here. So
that's quite
I
a few
want
of
them
you
to
guys.
be able to recognize me quickly when they see the number. They're like, oh, she's one of us.
Yeah.
Because, after the pandemic, so many New Yorkers came down, right? So
yeah, a lot of people
I'm
came
one
down.
of them.
Okay, yeah, they'll recognize you. And so when did that shift happen to you? And maybe tell us a little bit what was the choices around that and how that all came about.
Well, again, in New York, I got my real estate license there, but really didn't utilize it. I was in the garment industry, if you believe it or not. So I was in women's garment, like clothing.
Cool.
And I don't know, I just really wanted to change. So I just sold my apartment, put everything in storage, moved to Florida, me and my dog.
Yeah.
And didn't even know where I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who lived in Fort Lauderdale, so I went and stayed with her. We went to YOLO, and I was like, oh my God, Las Olas. This is
happening.
For me.
This
Okay,
is happening.
all
I'm
right,
not
this is
leaving.
good.
Let's go.
This is good. So I got a rental. And then bought a house a year later. But anyway, I decided I loved real estate always. I bought and sold in New York. I renovated, flipped, and things like that. Really enjoyed the process. So I figured, let me just get my license here. And it couldn't have been the worst time in the world. It was 2009. I mean, it was like foreclosure, short sales. It was the terrible time
winter
to start
of the winter. It was
I
freezing.
was like, if I can talk to Ellen from back then and be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But I did it, and I'm all the better for it, because I was able to take that time and really dive into real estate in a way that I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
In New York, attorneys write contracts.
Yeah, not the
So
title.
when I found out that I had to write the contract, I nearly had a stroke. I was like, I've got to write the contract? I'm like, no, I can't write. So I just took every class there was, and I had time because there was nobody selling or buying. So I had plenty of time to really, really learn the craft, and I really loved it. So I started with rentals and kept up with those renters who eventually became buyers, and then
Good for you.
really hung in there. And I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can tell.
It's like it's the most important thing for most people in their life.
It's a big decision.
That's where they raise their family, or, they get married, they have children, or become empty nesters and move. I mean, there's such important life milestones, and I'm a part of that. And it makes me so happy.
I can tell that energy is coming off of you as well. And I'm sure that then transpires when you're meeting people. And I want to touch on a piece that you mentioned in New York. It's an attorney state. Here it's a title state. So it's a big difference for some people that are used to different, setup in their state. And what else do you think that we could talk about that stood out, a difference on how real estate, how the world operates around here versus, let's say, in New York, and some things that stand out?
You mean in business?
Yeah, or in transaction, or
I think it's much more legal and really professional in New York. I feel that Florida's a little bit of a wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Still, you have a lot of rogue realtors out there doing things I can't believe, and you have great realtors and you have terrible realtors. In New York, you really don't have terrible realtors. You just you die. You just can't make it in New York. So having said
less
that,
room for error,
it's
and
less room
yeah,
for error there, I believe, because you have attorneys involved, really.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting down here. Having bought and sold in New York, it was just so legal, and it was so detailed in a way that you really felt protected.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt like I really needed to be almost like legal in
Yeah.
my mind, so that I could be as best of for anybody.
Yep.
So I really know all my paperwork, all the contracts and timelines, everything. I kind of come from that headset of, all right, I'm not an attorney, but let me just try to act like as if I were,
Yeah, and understand the craft
Yeah.
and be able to hold your own in that conversation, and then ultimately really deliver a sound contract and arrive at the finish line in prim and proper details, no room for
Yeah.
error, and that's got to be appreciated for sure. So that's
Yeah.
good on you. That's awesome, and that's interesting to hear. I've heard a bit of the Wild Wild West
That's
before
great,
down
yeah.
here, so a little bit of cowboy still down here, but it definitely is different, and it's great to hear that perspective as well. So very cool. And you mentioned Fort Lauderdale was the spot you came. You visited your girlfriend, and you got going in this area. And for you, I think too, you're servicing your motto. Let's talk a little bit about that, which I loved as well on what you mentioned, because we talked a bit about areas, but share, let the listeners know about that.
About like me and my business partner, Amanda Pathan, and we started the company in 2019. She lives in Davies, so
Yeah.
she handles a lot in the West End, Davies, Southwest Ranches, Plantation area, and I handle a lot of the East. So
Cool.
Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Pompano, Lauderdale by the Sea, like
Yeah.
that. So we cover the gamut. I do a lot of Boca, I'll say, also.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun. So we kind of cover all grounds, and we have each other,
Yeah.
which is so great. And as opposed to just being solo,
Yeah. Can bounce off each other
Yeah.
and support each other.
And then we have a nice team also. We have great realtors who work
Yeah.
with us. And, I'm the managing broker. So I train them as well as I can. The way I was trained, that's the way I'm training them, so that, we're all really professional.
Very
and
cool.
that's really important to
Yeah.
me.
No, that's awesome. And I think you mentioned as well on how you approach certain files, that if it's a certain price point, if that's sub million, above a million, whatever that is, that the motto is the same. And,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we chose the Collection Realty has a Tiffany blue color, and we
Yeah.
chose that specifically. And as I mentioned quickly to you, is that you can go to Tiffany's and you can buy, or the Blue Box company. I don't know if I
Yeah.
can really say that Tiffany, but
Yeah.
that color, because you can go and get a silver ring or silver earrings for
Yeah.
$300, or you can go and get a $50 million diamond tiara.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you still get that same service, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to take any price point, and it was regardless of price point, that you were going to get a luxury experience. So
Yeah.
that was important to us.
Yeah, that's awesome as
Yeah.
well. And you never know, someone that enters at a certain point, price point, and their growth, that then they can appreciate what you did at certain times, that in different time it might look different at a different price point. So that's really cool. And
Yeah, I also want to point
Yeah.
out, like, a lot of the times when the under million, they need the money more.
Yeah.
They really need their house to be presented in the best light, because
Yeah.
they need that money.
for that seller,
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the over million, they're very wealthy,
Yeah.
and they're always treated well. But, sometimes the under million, or they take, someone will go with a cell phone
Yeah.
and take photos, which make my eyes twitch.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
please
What's going
just
on
hire
here?
a photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your consultancy is so important on that point of like, what's worth it to really take the time and get some professionals in, because that outcome is a 2x, 3x, 4x, whatever that might look like, right? Yeah, that's very cool.
And then become loyal. You
Yeah.
know? They
Yeah.
use this time and time
And they
again,
trust
like you
it.
said.
Yeah.
Maybe they just got out of law school, and then they have their first apartment, and then they get married, and they hire us again. And I have very specific customers in my mind
Yeah.
that I've helped them
with.
grow,
Yeah.
buy and sell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Pretty cool.
awesome. And then I'm sure long-term relationships. So that's so
Yeah.
so awesome too. And the what would it cost? We talked about that, and I would ask you what would it cost to buy, and your response.
It costs nothing. You
Yeah.
just, as far as like, a seller, you close, you
Yeah.
sell your house, and then we get paid. We don't make a dime until we close.
Yeah.
So for a buyer, it costs nothing until you actually buy, and it costs nothing.
So there you go. You heard it. Okay, it would cost nothing, and that's what it would cost with
until
Ellen.
the closing,
Yeah.
and then somebody pays.
Yeah.
But you have to close first.
Yeah, agreed. And price points in house markets. It depends where you're buying. Like you mentioned, your partner's out in the Davie waterfront area you've done. So
Yes.
that varies on a big scale as well. And
I mean, we really cover from Miami to Delray.
yeah.
And we have an agent who just moved up to Port St. Lucie,
Yeah.
so she can handle up there too. So it's
Very awesome.
We're a big
great
team.
Strategic partnerships.
yes.
Yeah. And what would you say as well now for people that, on a New Yorker perspective, are there certain places when for those that are coming out of different states or out of country, when they're looking at Florida and that question gets asked of like, where in Florida am I going? Do you find that New Yorkers are attracted to a certain area, or is there something there that you've noticed?
Well, I definitely feel that people with children
Yeah.
want different things, and maybe singles and marrieds want different than
Yep.
singles. I mean, so I really have to just understand, and that's part of like the interviewing process when we speak. Like, what is it that you're looking for? Like, what
Yeah.
kind? Like, you want walkability? Do you want good schools? Like,
Yeah.
what do you like? Do you want waterfront? I mean, there's so many different things. Do they have pets? Do they not have pets? Do you want a yard so your dog can run around? Do you want horses? Because then you have to go to equestrian. So it's really individual, and that's what makes real estate so exciting. Is that it's like a thumbprint. It's like so individual. There's no transaction that's like the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is that, and yeah, of course, if someone has family and kids, they might not be looking at South Beach,
Right.
and they might be looking at somewhere in
They want a
Lauderdale
good
or-
school zone,
schools as well is super important, and on that school part as well. I think the big conversation here is that that something was new to myself and my family on private school versus not, and I think that's something is a huge difference
huge.
than some
Because private school is expensive.
yeah, it's expensive.
And so if you want private school, you have to live in certain cities.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's not great.
yeah,
And this is public information, but I have it all, together, and I could tell you exactly what cities are good for, moving to for private
Yeah.
school and public.
yeah,
But
and
it's
make
important to
that
know the
comparison
difference.
because I'm interested to see what that's like from a New Yorker perspective of private versus public, because
it depends on their finances.
yeah,
If you go to, St. Andrews, it's a lot of money.
yeah,
Then you have Catholic school, which is a lot less, but it's still money. So it depends on like, what's your budget? Like how much do you make? I'm sorry to say, but
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. It's like, what can you afford?
yeah. But that's a big driver, would you say, also in New York? It's still that conversation. If I send someone the public, or if you go in the public route, it's essentially like, okay, there's less cost, and private is more so what you can afford, and that's similar there as in Florida.
Yeah, because you have great areas in Manhattan that are public schools that are, if you're zoned in that area, you don't have to go public. I mean, private. You can just go public. But sometimes they just want the private school. That's
Yeah.
it. So same here. We have towns that you have amazing public schools, but then you have others that you really don't want to go public. You have to go private.
Very cool. So on public, which some of the areas that that are public, let's say, that are really stand out, or that
That are amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Weston is definitely one of them. Parkland and Boca. Those are the three. Like, I would
Awesome.
say those are the three best. There's other cities that have very good public schools, but it's in a specific area of those towns. Like if you're like Plantation has great schools, but if you live in this block, you're not zoned for that school, so you can't go to that school. You have to go to this school, and then it's tricky.
Yeah.
It's definitely tricky.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, that's a huge factor, and I think too, a big conversation that people, naturally, if someone has got a 1-bedroom condo and their life changes, they got a partner or kids, then you start looking at, okay, well, can I now look at 2 bedrooms in this area, or is it even the area I would want the family in, and then naturally looking. So there's that evolution as well, and that's a big role, of course, the schools that come with that, and waiting lists as well. I think even for daycares and conversations that I'm having with my family and my wife about what daycares are available, and the big waiting list as well. Yeah.
Or if you want to drive.
Yeah.
It's really about lifestyle. Like, what do you like? How do you want to live?
Yeah.
Do you want to spend all your money on school? Can you afford all of it? Can you live in a $3 million condo and then put your kids in private school and live in Fort Lauderdale? Because Fort Lauderdale, there's again certain areas have wonderful schools, and other areas are not the best.
Yeah, totally. And touch a little bit as well on we talked a bit about your team, but what was that evolution like and your growth, and for those that are listening to that are maybe in a position to also understand maybe in different industries how they can grow their team and partnerships. So you mentioned you had strategic partnerships in different areas. How did that all kind of take life of its own, or
interestingly it was very organic. I was with other companies, big companies, and my partner Amanda and I, we split off, decided to have our own brokerage in 2019, and it was really just going to be the two of us, like initially, and then we had someone who's like, I really want to leave my company, I'd like to go join your company, and so they came, and then they brought another person, and it's just kind of grown, but it's still really boutique, and I feel that works for me because I'm the managing broker and I'm responsible for them. And if anything goes down, it's on me.
Yeah, the buck stops at you.
And might I add, I'm also, a North Broward Regional member. I'm a Florida director. I'm an ombudsman, a mediator, professional standards, MLS committee. So I am pretty on the pulse of like what's good and what's bad. So I like to maybe be a little anal retentive and just I like to check everything before anything goes out, and I love that our team works like that. They're like, hey Ellen, I did this, will you just go and check my paperwork before I send it out, and we all cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure everything is perfect. So we try to clear the bumps before and watch for those bumps before we're at the bump. That's awesome, and make your life a lot easier in return, and happy customers. Happy clients. So good on you guys, and that's awesome, and to hear how that then really organically came together, and we're huge on that as well. Some of the best partnerships, they grow naturally. And you take it file by file, and do you're as good as your last file. So continue to do good work. I'm not looking to be 100 agents. I want like a family style that everyone can go on vacation and know that like I got you. Like you can go, I'll show your listings.
That's awesome.
I'll do your paperwork. I'll do your closing paperwork. I'll do this. I'll do that. Like they're not just alone, because realtors are really, you're hanging out there to dry. I mean, like you better. You're on your own. And that was always something I just didn't appreciate. Like when I got here, I knew no one. It was me and my dog, and I'm like, how do I do real estate? I had no idea, and no one helped. It was, and now I feel like I can be of service and help others too. And so I love it.
To give back on how became full circle from having that moment when you and your dog showed up, and the lack of resources, call it, and now being able to say, hey, I can offer this because I know what that's like, and giving back. That's awesome to hear that.
I love it.
That's so cool, and I can tell that it lights you up, and that's really cool. That's good on you, Ellen.
Thank you.
I want to, for those who are listening, where can people find you? Online or?
Here's my 917 number.
Yeah, 917.
Well, no, my number is 917-804-4457.
Yeah.
It's the Collection Realty. You can find us on Google, realtor.com, Zillow.com, our website, of course. We're based on Las Olas Boulevard here in beautiful downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, the sun is shining.
It is.
These palm trees, the wind that goes through them every day. It's a gorgeous spot. Yeah.
It sure is.
Yeah, it's awesome to be your neighbor. Thank you for being on. We appreciate you, and it was great to have you on and to have the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And those who are listening, this was another episode of What Would It Cost Florida. Thank you for tuning in. Until the next one.